Now it's September 3rd, 2022. I'm in New York State, which they say is North America, United States of America. Again, these are quotations because it's words that have been spoken through my lifetime that I recognize. Um, then there's this theoretical battleground or messaging board. It's some form of social media. I mean, it's not necessarily what the new kids deem social media, but I guess in my heyday, it's all we had. Although there was no like outline of how to follow along. I think some of the children enjoyed that. I wasn't one of them. So there's this movie that came out, that my version of social media came out with in 2012 called Battleship. Um, I'm watching it. There's a gentleman by the name of Alexander Skarsgård. I find that so interesting. It says American sailors fight an army of alien invaders. Now, taking this with a grain of salt. And then matching it up to some local other entertainment or social media that really the rabbit stations I thought were where the information for how to keep yourself safe and healthy and integrated was going to be, but that's been a soiled disappointment. Um, it's become some other kind of battleground, and like I really didn't sign up for this. Um, so I'm watching this movie now. I this is just social etiquette of the house. Look at how this works. I put on that I want to watch this movie, and then Andre Bocelli comes on, same time frame, and Linda like loves Andre Bocelli, and so she loves the way he sings Italian. Even though she won't let Lewis talk Italian, Lewis has to speak English. Go figure. She's an odd woman. I can't figure her out. So anyhow, so the movie is Battleship, and I put in because I didn't want to watch the commercials to tape it, so I could then fast forward, and I could really study some of the symbolic gestures that they've taken the time to write on it to their visual whatever. Um, and then I go in to watch it after I came back from a ambulatory walk. I come back and I notice the movie stopped taping and Andre Bocelli's on because she can only tape two things and watch something in the living room. But I'm like, why aren't you watching Andre Bocelli? And she's like, oh, because I didn't like it. So she stopped the movie halfway. So I had to restart up the tape. So anyhow, so the tape for me starts, the first one starts at the end of the movie now. Um, and it's where like like if I had to say like somebody cast the look-alike to like NFL like whatever. I don't know who did it. But like I'd say like is that like see I don't watch sports. I don't like sports. I don't get sports. I haven't been invited into sports. So I'm not real clear on what their purpose is. I mean, in like if I think hypothetically about Roman times without any historical accuracy whatsoever, I think the construct of how they built that was that the arena and the amphitheater had fellow fans and fanfare, and it boosted whatever. And then if I think in American terms of economy and how it's supposed to work, which it's not working at the moment, um, I find it an interesting conceptual construct and strategy. So I'm instead more interested in like the people who were actually they had parents who knew how to instruct them to get better level educations than what I've enjoyed, and took a different career path, perhaps technical trade training. I don't really know what they're called, but they call themselves and organize as something called a military. I don't know how they associate themselves. I met one, I actually was, when I was taking a port, he said he was military. I said, I want to, first of all, apologize. I'm not ready for this conversation. I said, my grandfather was military. I was like, but an American military. I was like, but he died before I was born, and I don't know what that actually means or what that actually looks like. I mean, I've seen it in the movie theaters, but again, I mean, like they show, uh, s mostly in my life frame, the few military movies that they've shown, it's always been some form of battle. And like key points in that is I don't think that the military wakes I mean, maybe they do, but again, I don't know because the communications, I mean, TTFN for a taco stand on this one. I mean, it's so confusing in like a Tigger way, Tigger. I'm watching this and I'm like, all right, so now this one takes place on a battleship. There's some kind of strategy. He looks like the football guy that happens to have the same astrology house that I have. Now, how could that be one semblance of reality? Because I think they call, I mean, like, do they call all American football players Americans? Like, if you're in the NFL, are you considered an American? Because then that really scares me on how they've like really altered the ratio of hiring and drafting. So that gets confusing. And it's like, do they just like, is that their only like, I'm assuming because they only promote them as these one sports kind of people. Like, do they play other sports other times? If you, I have no idea. Again, they're not really clear on communicative of like how they built the world, but here we are. So there's this battleship scene where there are like these real, I mean, I guess for respectable term, old timers. I mean, like my grandfather's age, well, not my dad's age now, who already served, but then like the younger generation now in their like 30s, 40s needs help. So who do they rely on? They go to the old timers who already served, who already gave whatever they did for their country. And now in the middle of this scene, it's they've got no ships left, they've got no anything left. And like the NFL look-alike, but in a navy, this really very whatever actor who I think is perfectly cast, by the way. I don't know who is in charge of casting, but wow, like you want to catch my attention, you did. And he's like perfectly built for the role. So he's there and he now is relying on, and he seems to be the authoritarian or like the man in charge of this ship. Um, and so he goes into the older timers or old timers catalog of respectables and reliables. And I mean, like again, I have such a Hollywood perfect world scenario of the appreciative nature that I show for what is supposed to be the actual military. If it really works that way or not, I'm not clear. I haven't been, I mean, like, I wouldn't know how to join. I wouldn't know what branch to join. I don't know how you get involved. Like, I mean, in I was built and delivered 1978 from the Stork system in respectable parenthetical. So I see that they look very authentic in this movie. Um, and but in the schooling, like I don't know if my mom's generation, if they like her dad was in the military, so I just feel like she had this wealth of knowledge. Not that she used it because there was whatever at home, but I mean, she had access to a different genre of people than or education than I've ever been. I had some uncles, but I mean, like, they were busy doing whatever uncles do when, like, they've got a niece, and I don't really know. So it gets really confusing how to explain. Like, I really have no idea what you all do for a living or like how you function. I mean, you can't always be on a battle, like combat, like scene. I mean, some of you perhaps. I don't really know. Again, I don't really know how it works. So it gets really confusing and not wanting to insult anybody and having this picturesque, perfect world viewpoint on, like, if you were called to action or called back to action, would you show up? The movies say they would. So I don't know if they put like a poll, like in a Family Feud scenario, like they say they poll people and there's some kind of communication network that exists. I saw one very today walking on the street in whatever he was wearing. I mean, again, satellite could pick it up, and if anybody really needed to know what he was dressed in attire wise, but I saw who he was, in between somebody ahead of him and somebody behind him, like very symbolically. I could imagine that's his loved ones on either side, has his in front of him and his back. I get that, greatly appreciated. I didn't have that same family I was born into. Like Lynn and Lou, I have no idea how they function. I don't. I don't know how they functioned up until now. I'm realizing just how sunk in some hole I'm in at the moment with lack of knowledge, and then trying to use what's available to my person, like humans just talking on the news station, but the news does not seem to be cast properly. It seems like things are deteriorating, as well as my health and as well as some environmental issues. They say there's some voting system. I don't know who for. I mean, like, again, once every 4 years, I didn't know what a primary was. Um, they haven't really taught what that was. I mean, it's not trying to, I don't know, promote the lack of education, but it's just, this is just the baseline of where I'm uniquely qualified for really genuinely not having a clue what the heck's going on or who's in charge of it for real. Um, so I'm watching this Battleship. There's this thing that comes on, and then it shows that they will come back if they're called upon to help in a situation. I think that that's really wonderful. I myself, however, do not have any of that level of person that I'm aware of in like a, I wouldn't even know how to put it together. Um, so there's that. Then it goes back to a more, I mean, it's a serious conversation with somebody. It shows like the shape of the Pentagon. But again, this is a Hollywood movie. This is not like real world, but there's some level of integration. I really don't know. And so I'm watching this, and there's like this, I think he calls himself undersecretary, which I don't know really what that means, but I'm following the words. And then there's somebody from NASA inside this room. Um, and there's some extraterrestrial that made contact. Now, in a silly format, I could say, like, there's this military industrial complex which is in charge of a lot and has like a very big venue. And while I would like to think that it works at peak performance at every level in every office, I'm a realist and I walk the streets of New York, carefully, and I've been hurt. And I know that At the moment, it's not at its most peak performance, but I don't want to piss off the wrong people either. So I'm watching, and they make this paradox of that they put some form of the military industrial complex and whoever's in that world level, they put some communicable effort out into the galaxy, and then extraterrestrial life actually responded. And then it's them seated at the table like how do we handle this? Right. Yeah, got that. Kind of feel like that way at 44. I don't know how to handle them. They don't know how to handle me. I don't know how to reach out for help or involvement. I don't know what I missed. I don't know why New York's taken form the way that it has. Um, I know what they have taught. I've seen there's other states in the United States um, that were formed one specific way on the television throughout my life frame, and the White House being the White House for my life frame, the ancestors being what they are. Again, if they call us monarchs or oligarchs, they don't do so on the television. However, it would be a way to address whatever it is that we are. Um, so like then there's this, like they say there's two sides to every story. All right, so there's two sides to every story, and then there's the extraterrestrial side. I was born of this place, but not perhaps of their realm of reality or world. Not that I'm not open to listening and to learning about it. I've just never been gifted that opportunity, except for a few little visual references on Hollywood movies, which, again, I don't know on the back end of political affiliation. I have no idea how to even investigate that. I don't. So I feel like I'm just at this very vulnerable position and just watching, trying to piece it together. So there's that. Then there's this crossover event to the real, like, because Navy is, they have boats in this movie. Usually Air Force is associated with airplanes, Navy is associated with boats in my reality as it's been presented to me. Although just as of late, trying to figure out a little bit more, it seems that Navy has some planes, airplanes as well. I learned that when I went to the Intrepid, which is a museum. So for my son. So that's like the level of, I mean, it's not even expertise, it's really pathetic, but I mean, like, it's me attempting and trying to reach out and find other humans and how they work there, whatever. I mean, I don't understand like how to get my children involved in it either, although the Eagle Scouts, or the U.S. Coast Guard Eagles were very helpful. I really appreciated that one day that they were on the television. um, so there's that. And then there's this thing that they're holding today, or today, uh, Monday, I think, is their actual parade. They say that in New York, there's about 1 million West Indians, and they have this parade every year. I'm not NYPD, like, uniformed, that goes and works and observes their behaviors. It has been brought to my attention via the officials in NYPD on the news outlet that allegedly there is a lot of violence and I don't know what else that goes on during this. It's not a jubilee, they call it something they call it something totally separate. um and I'm just like, and so they show that, and I'm like, then there's also at the same time Delta pilots on the commercial passenger pilot program, but has worldly whatever, but they're calling themselves Americans in their uniforms with their semblance. They're picketing and they have a map of what airports they're picketing for some labor, whatever dispute that they have going on, in still uniformed, still a semblance of reality. I still don't have access to anybody in that form of anything. So I'm still at like zero intelligence in the sense of what's going on around my person or around New York or around the country. And I really don't see any set guidance of even where to tune in, plug in, or how to follow along to keep yourself safe and protected and your family. And to make sure that I'm building my son into a North American future. I mean, I somehow was built out of a North American future because this, I don't think, is what Linda and Lou had planned for me, is back to live with them after some really horrible things went on. Um, I think they put the effort in that they were trying to get me a better tomorrow. It just never came to fruition. And in being that we're trapped in North America, I don't know how to get my sons into a better tomorrow position for themselves. Being I've been mishandled the way that I have while here. So this gets very interesting in trying to explain and trying to follow along. There's been a lot of movies, but again, I haven't where to tune in, what's going on, how is it pertinent and relevant. I don't know if that's what the military keeps tabs on and the blessed military children that get to live in that society. I have not been that blessed. I mean, even to figure out my way to them. So this is what it looks like from my perspective of having no background noise whatsoever. Just whatever it is on the big old television screen is what it is for interpretation. And this is what it looks like.
That's the door. We have no ships left. We have one. Are you crazy? That's a museum. Not today. This ship is 70 years old. It's totally outdated. The firing systems are all analog. The engines haven't been started in a decade, which would be fine, but they're steam, which I have no idea how to fire up. And even if I had a user's manual and 6 weeks to go through it all, we still don't have enough crew to fire it up. I don't know what you're thinking, sir.
I went to a museum. They were saying that they were nuclear powered. So, I mean, again, when I do try to look, so if I ever run into one of you, like, I don't seem so, like, dumb or stupid, because it's really how I feel, just being, like, left out, like the kid that didn't get picked for the team. I mean, that's really what it feels like. I'm like, I did hear somewhere in my life where one of my uncles said, or my mom said, they're like, no, the military takes everyone. Like, they don't turn people away. What year was that? I'm just curious because I don't think that like modus operandi or motif fits for where I was like just tossed into. I mean,
You men have given so much to your country, and no one has the right to ask any more of you. But I'm asking.
What do you need, son?
I need to borrow your boat.
The arcade. Arcadia, Missouri.
Best cover your ears. Hers like a kid. Good. Take a go. I got 8 boilers hot. Ready to rock and roll, sir.
I'll be looking at our fuel.
600 long ton, sir. Just enough for a maintenance run.
Ordnance?
It's 50 year Ruby good, sir, but 8 inch not much.
All right, let's get her to sea. We got work to do.
Roger that.
Now, interestingly enough, the name on his uniform is Hopper for like what's in the hopper. Again, I did not realize that Gene Wan, or Frog, Frog, was a derogatory reference. Again, in the American Wheaties box, they made it seem like the frogs were important at some point, unless I'm misquoting the wrong areas. Tactical advantage, again, it gets really confusing with the holes in time and space, and then like just being like a baby seal on the tip of a giant white shark that has its jaws open at all time. That's what living in this area of New York feels like in this time frame. I'm just saying, from somebody who never got to like the sports arena at Coliseum or stadium level, and who never got in like the college section, because marriage with children to somebody who highly respected was supposed to be the way my family member went. At somebody at 6 years old has 11 fingers, and that is the most important person I'm ever going to meet in my life.
Engines ahead, slack. All engines ahead, slack. All engines ahead, flank aye, sir.
Now, again, that's like the action hero section of the militarized zone or military industrial complex, according to the humans. And I'm just seated in a chair as an audience trying to piece it together, and trying to give it the respect that it needs, and is earned and deserved thus far, from somewhere far away from land. Because if you saw what the land looking we're going, that they're out to sea and they have no idea. I'm going on that, guys, even though I know realistically they have satellite, but I don't know why there's so much sedition and treason going on in the local area over my life frame. If somebody's got their fingers on the trigger and control. So that's always my biggest question. Not that I know who to address it to. All right, and then this is in parenthetical being like the bosses in the Pentagon. Is that an appropriate term? I don't even know, because do they leave the ships and come to shore? Like, I've heard that they never leave their ships because that's against some policy or rule, but then again, in this movie they are on a floating museum. So again, not quite sure where the rules apply on that one.
I'm hoping somebody...
So I would imagine this would be the conversation about television and like what's going on with broadcast media and now this internet and communications dilemma with like everybody being like hooked up to satellite deep spaces from computer terminals. Nobody has any idea what country anybody pledges allegiance to anymore. Everybody's just integrated into like a whole bunch of different shells that have patterned material. They sound kind of alike. Nobody looks alike. I mean, like, it looks really chaotic. If I, that's, I
Somebody here can explain this to me.
Mr. Secretary, 4 of the 5 objects landed in the Pacific Ocean. The 5th one appeared to have broken apart. I'm making significant contact with Hong Kong, but other places were also affected. Scotland, Germany, France, even Iowa.
So what is it?
Well, sir, at this point, we're working on a couple of theories.
Iowa. Interesting. There's a very specific zip code in Iowa of great importance to G under.
And you are who, sir?
I'm with NASA.
Well, what is NASA present in this room for?
Oh my gosh, and to be a baby seal and see this gigantic white shark at all times, it is very frightening.
We're looking at the very real possibility that this is legitimate extraterrestrial contact. It appears that it originated from Gliese solar system, home of planet G.
You're saying that we sent out a signal and we got back an alien response.
I know in the drama of the movie at the moment, that seems like... But again... Yeah, I could play that either way. I get that. That's how I feel with these cell phone videos.
Subway drive.
So that's what's going on in the movie theater category of 2012. And then there's this real live event going on in the local area. I will not be attending. I was not invited. They say that that they have a history of violence. It does not sound like a place a little lady should be. And so I will not be attending. However, I will be watching to see for patterns wise, because again, I'm monitoring my own health, which has been affected in some really serious, frightening ways that I also have nobody to lean on or speak to. Like a how-to guide to survive New York would have been really helpful if there was like a big brother somewhere. I mean, I really thought I was going to be taken care of because I did have somebody who used to take an interest in me when I was in elementary school and then high school, until all of a sudden that no longer happened and then disappeared and I don't know what happened. But there was like, I thought that person would be my go-to person, except I don't have a contact number. So that gets really confusing on how do you ask that one person that showed you that they were your family member, that you could rely on, they were going to whatever. And they were like your, do you say the word champion? Is that the appropriate word? For lack of a better term, I mean, like, I don't even know how to speak on such things, but I'm attempting to because I know how significantly important it is. Now, from Navy, let's go for a moment to Channel 7 Eyewitness News. One of the symbols that they've shown me here. There is a line of pilots, and the signage of the pilots says Delta pilots ready to strike. Labor risk is back on the table. Pilot contract delayed. Industry leading contract now. These are the signs that I'm getting from pilots. But they fly commercial passenger aircraft. But these are some of the things that they're saying.
Spirit all hit the picket lines at 12 major airports. This is video from Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, but it was a similar scene at JFK on Thursday. Pilots are demanding that management address the staffing shortages. An estimated 1.8 million people will be coming and going through the airports in our region. Along the New Jersey Turnpike in Ridgefield, Janice Yu, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Stay with Eyewitness.
And then this is the piece on what's going on.
First time since the pandemic, the West Indian Day Parade will be back in full force this weekend.
But now more than 100,000 participants and 1.5 million spectators are expected to take part. And to keep everyone safe, there are new safety measures that are being put into place.
Yeah, 13 security checkpoints with handheld metal detectors.
Now, they're going from a place, I don't know when this traditional parade began. I only heard of it when the Romer 1976 got into the academy in 2002 and then had to go and work the parade. Grand Army Plaza to Schenectady. So that's the first time I had ever heard of it. I didn't know what it meant. He gave me an earful of what his experience was like. So again, that's firsthand witness knowledge. But here we are.
Will greet anyone entering the festivities, and the entire parade route down Eastern Parkway will be a barricaded frozen zone. Now, all of this because of the history of violence associated with the celebration.
Eyewitness News reporter Crystal Cranmore live in Brooklyn with more. Crystal.
I should also mention, when I lived out in Nassau and Suffolk County, because I've lived in both areas, the news program, we'll talk about Suffolk because I lived there the longest, or even when I lived in Virginia, never mentioned Grand Army Plaza. No, I just recently, Lewis took me, drove by there. I had never even had a visual physical marker to even know how far or close it is. I know this is a significant gesture for them in this journey that they're doing. I just don't really know intellectually why this is so important for them. But here we are.
Good afternoon. Yes, organizers know that people will be out here with their flags, their rags, ready to celebrate after 2 years of COVID restrictions. But police will also be out here in full force, making sure everyone is staying safe while celebrating their Caribbean heritage.
Do not come out here to fight, to engage in any violence.
A message from the NYPD as revelers once again flood Eastern Parkway. The West Indian Day Parade back in full force this Labor Day weekend after 2 years of pandemic restrictions. Nearly 2 million people are expected on the road. Authorities say they're ready. And
2 million. I thought they said 1 million. Now they're alerting me there's 2 million. Now, demography and the turnover of the apple within from 1890s until 2022. I'd really like to know what the West Indian population was in New York in 1890. I would have no idea how to look that up.
announcing enhanced security measures Friday.
We have increased video surveillance cameras that are being installed, and we're going to be using a large amount of wood and metal barriers.
Police say the parade routes for Juve and the West Indian Day Parade will be a frozen zone with 13 security entry points throughout the Juve parade route. Officers will scan people.
Now, I'm just saying, it says Caribbean, it says West Indian. They usually associate those two words, from what I've caught from the chair, not from a state educational facility, but from some FTC, FCC, like, announcement board where I'm sitting here like, right. And then I see a South American flag from Brazil. And I'm like, I see the Jamaican flag, the green and black one with the yellow X. I saw that. But then I see them waving the Brazilian flag, and I'm like, referee, umpire, referee. I don't know. Like, I think Twinning in his NFL career, they use referees and they throw all sorts of rags or flags on the field when there's like penalties or like calls, like you're offsides. Right. So, just saying, I saw a Brazilian flag being flown at whatever year this particular parade was captured. And it's kind of how I feel when I say sedition, treason, and mutiny at certain levels of what is being thrown at me visually. If I'm speaking to somebody who's like maybe on a ship in charge of something important and they're not necessarily groundskeep, but they have some important whatever. And I'm just like, it looks like off bounds. Like, I played soccer, like not like real, like championship soccer. I mean, like I played in like the 3rd grade, 4th grade. Lou was the coach. And so that's like my level of like, there was a referee there, but like the girls weren't, we behaved ourselves. We did not hurt one another. We were not out there to push each other on the ground in bad sportsmanship. I mean, we were, I don't know, not like I see some of, I mean, I don't really watch it on TV, but Lou says they get caught up in the moment. Yeah, all right. But again, the referees on the NFL games, I've seen them make whistles and then make hip movements that then like some magical microphone comes on and they call out things. Who do you call out to for referee if you're seeing a lot more people out of bounds and offsides and it's encroaching on your ability to have quality of life? Who do you call then? Like in the magical phone book of a machine that you push buttons and then, but you have to know what buttons to push and who to address the communicative action to. I mean, these things aren't even explained where I come from. I'm just at a chair watching this unfold.
Entering the parade with metal detectors, alcohol, illegal contraband, and weapons off limits. Law enforcement acknowledged the problems that have historically tainted the weekend festivities.
It had nothing to do with the people who came out to celebrate their heritage and their culture. It was a relatively small few bad actors.
And those bad actors often haunt Trinell Gabe, who lost her husband Carrie in 2015. He was shot in the head, caught between a shootout while celebrating Juve.
There is no excuse, none whatsoever, to turn to gangs. But all too often, our communities lack the resources.
His legacy now lives on in the Carrie Gabe Recreation Center. The backdrop Friday, as leaders urge the community to learn about the vibrant West Indian culture and not link it to violence.
I am so tired of hearing that they don't have access to resources for real. especially the New Yorkers, because they have taken over the New York City school system in such a, and they were also, might I add, when I was in Virginia and I was doing school tours down in Virginia. I used a company by the name of Pulte to build a house at 7701 Hampton and then Green Drive. So in Hampton Park. So I was down there and I was doing a land surveillance of, unofficially, just for my own child and where I would allow him to go to school. Um, and as I went around, I was like, what is going on with these schools? I mean, it's in New York. Now I go to Virginia, it's in Virginia. And I'm like, where are the kids that look like my kid? Why is it so hard to find a school and a place for him where he fit in? It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And I don't know what I missed along the last 4 decades. I don't know what my parents missed in the 7 decades that they were on before I arrived. I don't know what was supposed to be passed along to me. I don't know what happened to my elementary school person that came to visit. He didn't go to my elementary school, but he came to visit, several visits, and I don't know why that stopped. I don't know. I mean, again, this gets very confusing from my perspective because I never have any answers. And then things happen, and it's just like decades long waiting with like worse and worse situations arising in my personal ability to like not be able to even like at this point. I mean, it's horrible. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. It's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.